All right, let's dive into something that might just flip your whole idea of freedom on its head. We're going to explore a pretty wild paradox today. This idea that having complete, total freedom can actually lead you straight into the deepest kind of slavery. I know it sounds like a contradiction, but stick with me. By the end of this, you might see it as one of the most important truths of our modern world. So, to get right to the heart of it, let's start with a simple question. We're going to look at two different people in two very different situations. And I just want you to think for a second. Which one of them is truly the freer person? Okay, so on one side, you've got an addict living in Portugal. Drugs are decriminalized there, so he can legally buy and use them whenever he wants. You could say he has maximum external freedom to do what he pleases. On the other side, you have a worker in Singapore, where the drug laws are unbelievably strict. We're talking even the death penalty. He has massive external restrictions placed on him. So who's freer? The guy who can do whatever he wants, or the one who's told no? And our gut feeling here is pretty powerful, right? We almost instinctively know the worker in Singapore is freer. But why? Well, it's because the addict in Portugal is a complete slave to his internal impulses. His life is probably spiraling. He might wake up every day wanting to stop, dreaming of a different life, but he just can't. He has zero control. That's not freedom. That's the exact opposite of it. This whole paradox really exists because we've got a fundamental misunderstanding of what freedom actually is. We tend to mix up two totally different concepts, this idea of external freedom and the power of internal will. Let's break that down a bit. So first, you have the common definition of freedom. This is the one we all know. It's the idea that freedom is just the absence of rules, no one telling you no. It's the belief that being free means you can do whatever you want whenever the urge strikes you. But then there's this other, much more powerful concept. In Russian, it's called Voля, but we can think of it as will or agency. And this is an internal power. It's the strength to put limits on yourself, to feel that impulse rise up and have the power to say, no, I choose not to do this. And that's the whole ballgame right there. True freedom isn't about chasing every single desire. It's about self-mastery. It's the ability to say no to a short-term pleasure right now for a bigger, better, more meaningful reward down the line. That's where real power and real liberty come from. Now, this isn't just some abstract philosophy. This idea is incredibly relevant to all of us, right now, because our modern world is packed with systems that offer us this false freedom, specifically to control us. Let's look at how this trap plays out in our everyday lives. Just think about it. We have unlimited freedom to eat all the sugary, fatty foods we want. We have endless, easy access to pornography, alcohol, and social media feeds designed to be addictive. All these things are made to be easy, pleasurable, and limitless. And by giving us the so-called freedom to indulge, they can turn every single one of us into a version of that Portuguese addict, trapped by our own habits. And what's the reason? Well, it's because your lack of will is profitable. It's that simple. Your attention is literally money to social media companies. Your cravings are cash for food corporations. When you become a slave to your impulses, you also become a very predictable, very profitable consumer. In this system, making you a slave isn't evil. It's just good business. So, if that's the trap, how do we get out? How do we build up that will we need for real freedom? Well, the source material gives us this awesome metaphor to think about: the patient hunter. This comparison really gets to the core of what makes us human. An animal, it just acts on pure instinct. It sees food, it eats. It feels an urge, it acts. It can't even comprehend the idea of sacrificing comfort now for a reward later. But we're different. We have reason. We have will. We can push down our immediate desires and put up with discomfort for a bigger goal. That is our unique superpower. And you know, this ability isn't something we're just born with. It has to be built. Your brain is incredibly changeable, especially before the age of 25. That's why this period is so critical. It's when external restrictions from parents, from teachers, are actually vital. They act like training wheels, protecting a young mind from temptations it's not ready for, and helping build those neural pathways for self-discipline, for will. So how do we build it as adults? Exactly like the patient hunter. You have to start small. Maybe it's just resisting one cookie or putting your phone down 5 minutes earlier. You learn to just sit with that little bit of discomfort that comes from saying no to yourself. As you practice, you build your agency, you build that muscle, and then you can take on bigger challenges. The ultimate goal here is to become the master of your own mind and body, to make them a slave to yourself, serving your long-term goals, not your fleeting impulses. And this brings us right to the final and most powerful choice at the very heart of this whole thing. See, the real question isn't, will you be free or a slave? The real question is, whose slave will you choose to be? So, these are the two paths in front of all of us. On one side, you can be a slave to your impulses. That's the path of the Portuguese addict. You're ruled by addiction and outside forces, always chasing that temporary pleasure that leads to long-term ruin. Or you can be a slave to your higher self, to your own will, the path of the patient hunter. You're ruled by reason, by your own agency, and you accept a little discomfort now to achieve real, lasting freedom later. At the end of the day, there is no third option. We can't be a slave to nothing. We are always being ruled by something. The only choice you actually have is what you submit to, your lowest, most immediate desires, or your highest, most meaningful ideals. And so that leaves us with a final question, the one that only you can answer for yourself. When you really look at your life, your habits, your goals, who's in control, and which master will you choose to serve?